All right. Well, welcome everyone and good day. My name is Lisa Biro and I am a customer success program manager here at Sumo Logic. And I'm super excited to kick things off for today's brown bag session. If you're new to our brown bags, we have them monthly and usually on the fourth Thursday of every month, and each one focuses on a specific technical topic about Sumo Logic. And so today, though, we have something a little different. This is a special edition brown bag where we're partnering with AWS and bringing you a unique fireside chat to explore today's topic, which is securing the future responsible AI on AWS with Sumo Logic. And so, as always, with these sessions, the Q&A is available, the chat is open for everyone. So please be sure to submit your questions as you have them. So I'm thrilled to have a special guest today. We have Moumita Saha. She is a senior security partner SA for worldwide consulting partners at AWS, and she's joining us from Denver, Colorado. And we also have a recurring host with me, Adam, Adam White. He's our Senior Director of Technical Marketing at Sumo Logic, and he's joining us from Jackson, Mississippi. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Adam, I'll hand it over to you to kick off our conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa, and thank you, Moumita. Happy to be here today. I must confess that I'm not exactly fireside yet. It's still like 80 something degrees here in Mississippi, but hopefully we'll be actually fireside soon. So today, just going over our agenda, today we're going to be talking through some of the key themes around responsible AI. We'll start by looking at the risks in generative AI, concerns that organizations face as they adopt these new capabilities. From there, we'll define what responsible AI really means, and then take a closer look at how AWS is embedding those principles into its services. And again, super happy to have Moumita here with us today. After that, we'll show how Sumo Logic helps strengthen AI security on AWS, adding visibility and control to ensure usage stays safe and compliant. And finally, we'll bring it all together with responsible AI in practice, showing what it looks like when organizations put these ideas into action with real tools and real governance. Moumita, I'll hand it over to you to get into some of the risks of generative AI.
Sure. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Lisa. And hello, everyone. I'm super excited to do this brown bag session today. And let's see how much we can answer your questions on generative AI risks and responsible AI. So to start with, as Adam was mentioning for the risks in Gen AI, the most common user concerns that we have been seeing as a pattern in Gen AI, in my opinion, are number one, Gen AI could hurt a company's legal rights. Secondly, Gen AI can generate some wrong results. It can lead to information. The information we led to Gen AI could be shared with public or the competitors of the company. And finally, it can be detrimental for humanity. So they kind of constitute the basics of the risks that we have been seeing in our customers about Gen AI. Now, talking about the risks in our profile, the Gen AI has been remarkable in the advancements in technology and in all different industries that we have seen so far, enabling the models to create human-like context across text, images, code. They are of great help. But from mitigate, while these potential applications are vast and exciting, we must be thoughtful about the challenges that this can bring, from mitigating the biases and harmful outputs to addressing broader privacy and intellectual property concerns. That is the rise of the Gen AI, which has underscored the importance of developing AI responsibility.
Moumita, well, just one question
Yeah.
about this. I mean, I think you've nailed it on, some of the risks and things that people are seeing and facing. what do you think that what do you think's driving the gap between organizations like experimenting with generative AI and those that are actually operationalizing responsible AI practices? Like, are you finding that some businesses are more on the bleeding edge and some less, and maybe any factors that you've noticed there that might be useful?
Yeah, recent research has shown that there is a concerning gap, which you absolutely pointed out, Adam. There is a consistent gap between the Gen AI adoption and operationalizing responsible AI. And I think several key factors play here. First is speed versus deliberation mismatch. Like organizations are moving fast to capture the competitive advantages of Gen AI, but responsible AI frameworks require a careful, methodical implementation. And then there's pressure to deploy quickly while governance structures lag behind. So, speed versus deliberation is definitely number one for me. Second is resources and the expertise constraints that we have. We still have a huge skill gap in Gen AI, especially responsible AI. And the third is unclear ROI and metrics. Unlike the adoption metrics, which are very straightforward, the business value of responsible AI practices can be harder to quantify, making it a lower priority for budget allocation. So, organizations, I believe, must be successfully bridging this gap to, to treat responsible AI as a parallel work stream to adoption and not as an afterthought.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like be thinking about what responsible AI looks like at the genesis of your use instead of, after you after you've already made some
Exactly.
mistakes and, gotten into it a bit. Yeah, that's 100. And we've done we have a podcast, here at Sumo Logic, and we've done an episode on like AI policies. We're seeing those more and more in businesses and how, those AI policies can kind of help put some guardrails basically
Yeah.
on exactly what you're talking about here.
Right.
Awesome.
So now, moving on, I wanted to share a little more detail on how we can elaborate the risks in Gen AI, kind of dividing it across three major layers: the provider, the tuner, and the consumer. The provider layer is where and how training data is created. If you move up, then there is the tuner layer where policies are implemented, how it is managed, and how the models are hosted. What are the policies and guardrails around them? That's the tuner layer. And then the third layer is the consumer layer, where our customers are using Gen AI in their different industries. What are the legal implications, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Um, Mamita, when you break it down across like provider, tuner, and consumer layers, which of those do you find that customers are most concerned about today? Like and maybe also like what might they be underestimating on this front?
Well, I believe the most concerned layer that we are seeing as a pattern in many customers are the consumer layer. Organizations are intensely focused on the immediate legal risks that they need to imply to the copyright infringement, privacy violations, regulatory compliance. These feel tangible and directly impacting their business. So it makes complete sense why companies or customers are most concerned about the consumer layer. Bottom line, it's all about the trust. But a significantly underestimating layer, in my opinion, is the provider layer. Most customers treat the foundational models as black boxes. But we need to realize that these training data problems can cascade down. If a model was trained on biased, copyrighted, or problematic content, those issues actually affect every downstream use case. So maybe as customers, we need to ask, what was the data proven? provenance and the consent model? How was training data filtered and curated? What biases might be embedded from the training process? So maybe these are the questions as customers we need to ask to the model providers to understand the provider layer and understand the risk behind it. And also another layer, the tuner layer, is kind of a mixed attention where few customers do give it importance and are concerned about that layer, but few are not. So some sophisticated organizations are implementing robust governance, but many others are doing minimal fine tune oversight.
That makes sense. Yeah, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, but just making sure that it's not like a garbage in, garbage out situation on
Exactly.
the model front.
Right.
Awesome.
So let's now talk about responsible AI. Responsible AI is the practice of designing, developing, and using AI technology with the goal of maximizing the benefits and minimizing the risks. At AWS, we define responsible AI using a set of core dimensions that we assess and update over time as an AI technology stack that evolves over the time. And in the next couple of slides, we'll be talking about those core dimensions. We can move on to the next slide, Adam. Yeah. So let's consider, and this is for all of our audiences, that let's consider responsible AI as a journey. And no one has completely arrived in this journey. That's the first thing we must realize. It accelerates business adoption, and you can expect to drive scale of AI when your customers, both internal and external, are unclear or have doubts about how you are going to use or how you are using this technology. And to be successful in this shift, organizations need to approach AI with the mindset of doing the right thing in the right way for the right reasons.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, I was making sure I was off mute. So,
Yeah.
as most things, I mean, this just brings a thought. Since responsible AI is really about people and culture, not just technology, and we talk about people and culture being such a significant part of how we do business. Technology obviously plays a factor, but what advice would you give to organizations that are eager to scale on this front, but just don't feel like they may have the cultural foundation in place? I mean, it is definitely a shift that organizations are going through. So, how do you kind of see that cultural dynamic here?
Yeah, the secret to responsible use of AI is not technology, as you rightfully said. It is the fundamental, it's fundamentally about the people fostering and maintaining the right culture across the organization. And this needs to happen bottom up, but critically also be supported top down. That's what I feel. Like this requires strong leadership establishing the right goals for the organization, building the right skills one step at a time, starting with broad awareness and developing the organizational maturity to the point where responsible AI is integrated into the very fabric of how you build applications in your organizations. So it has to come from both the side. It has to be bottoms up and also a top down leadership approval and affirmation is also something that as organizations we seek when we are trying to dive into a latest technology like AI, especially responsible AI.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Now let's talk about how we do responsible AI at AWS. I would like to give our audience a little glimpse of how we are fully committed to developing AI responsibly across the entire life cycle through a principled people-centric approach. First, we are constantly innovating and iterating. Secondly, we provide purpose built tools, guidance, and educational resources to empower our customers. And thirdly, we believe that responsible AI is an integral part of the entire AI lifecycle. So, now let's look into some of the ways we are advancing the science behind responsible AI. So, what constitutes responsible AI is constantly evolving. So, we have broken down the responsible AI concept into major 8 core dimensions, starting with the controllability, privacy and security, safety, fairness, veracity, explainability, transparency, and governance. Adam, would you like me to go on details with any of the specifics of the core
Yeah,
dimensions?
yeah, maybe yeah, like safety, controllability, these are all, you can see why these are here and why they've been built as the core, just at a glance. Maybe like of the dimensions of like fairness, explainability, robustness, and transparency, which are customers most eager to address right now? And so like near term, which of these resonate? And then as time goes on, what do you kind of see? How do you kind of see that changing?
Yeah. So, out of the 8 which we think customers should be concerning about or should pay most attention right now, number one will be veracity and robustness, which is about the factual correctness. We have heard about hallucinations, and arguably, this is the current biggest problem to solve with generative AI. Now, prompt engineering that restricts model attention to only what's explicitly stated in the prompt is a well established technique. But it does not work 100% of the time. So, we would like the confidence that the AI systems cannot be easily fooled or confused. For instance, insignificant perturbations of input should not lead to dramatic differences in the output. So that's about the veracity and robustness that our customers should be focused on. Next, I believe, will be fairness and explainability. So I'll first talk about explainability. Can a system offer a clear rationale for its decision? And I believe this is absolutely necessary for anything and everything we ask Gen AI. It's like when you are asking a human about a question, you also inwardly seek an attestation or an explanation of why am I saying this. So that explainability becomes of higher priority when it comes to AI systems. As customers, we must ask that justification from the AI systems for the interference produced or the different responses they produce, and which particularly is important for those with compliance requirements. And the next, I would say, is fairness. Here we consider how a system impacts the different subpopulation of users, for example, by gender, ethnicity, age, language. We must make sure there are no harmful disparities in the system performance across the subpopulations.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything, from a future perspective, Mamita, like do you see kind of these changing as time goes on?
Yeah, transparency will become more important as we move forward in future, which is more about the extent to which an organization enables customers and their end users to know whether or not they're using an ML based application,
Hmm.
and to make those informed choices about their use of ML application, which could mean knowing how ML models were trained, how they were tested or benchmarked. So, having that transparency will build that trust in your end customers on your GenAI applications. So, transparency will be one, and then controllability, having the mechanisms to monitor and steer AI system behavior will play a key role, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we got
Awesome.
a question from the audience, Moumita and Adam.
Sure.
Tim is wondering maybe a quick general overview of how to implement controllability or veracity, Bedrock and Nova guardrails, etc.
Sure. So, talking about veracity, the first thing you can do is fine tuning the rags that you're using, the knowledge bases that you're using in Bedrock. How are we fine tuning the results? How are those rags integrated with the models when we are asking the models the right questions for your application? How are we integrating the rag? That can play a key role in your veracity and robustness, because the more refined data you provide through the RAG process will add up to your factual correctness of the responses of the models. And fine tuning is the next. So, that can be a way of adding to your Bedrock models. And then that can also help in the hallucinations. That is what we can do as a proactive approach. Now, as a detective approach, we'll be putting the guardrails. Actually, preventive approach will be putting the guardrails. The Bedrock guardrails can detect hallucinations of different kind. It can also do filtering for words, and now it has the automated reasoning. So you get all those advanced features in the guardrails to make sure that the responses, the input responses and the output responses, are well filtered for checking the robustness and the veracity of the outputs.
That's great. Makes a lot of sense. Tim said thank you.
Of course. So yeah, now moving on to responsible AI lifecycle. We are integrating, or we're proposing to integrate responsible AI into the end-to-end life cycle of a foundational model, from acquiring training data to developing foundation models to pre-process user prompts to finally post-process the outputs to the downstream impact. For example, we have a service called Amazon Recognition, which employs a diverse group of annotators to label datasets and evaluate for biases in the results by testing amongst gender, ethnicity, etc. And the intersections of these attributes are used to identify the disparities in each feature of recognition. We then also use GenAI to test for robustness with casual analysis by creating fake faces and altering attributes like hair length, makeup, etc. And then we monitor these models over time, even after deployment, to test for model drift and update our datasets for data quality regularly. Gaining the customer feedback is a must and something we collect with our various customers and end users via customer meetings and focus groups. And this is something I would also recommend as you all, as our customers, to do with your customers for getting that feedback on your GenAI applications.
Yeah, that's good advice, Mamita. So speaking of model drift, I know this is something that you hear a lot out there that customers kind of worry about or is a concern. What best practices have you seen work well for keeping foundation models accurate and fair once they're deployed at scale? Like I think most things until they're deployed at scale look okay, and then you get it out in the world a little bit more and realize. So what anything that you have from a best practices standpoint on the model drift front would be awesome.
Sure. I would like to start with the number one being multi layer monitoring systems. As we were talking about in the previous section about Bedrock guardrails is just one, but having multi layer monitoring system like real time drift detection that can track both input and output patterns that you can do right now with Bedrock guardrails, but there are more advancement you can do on top of it. The second with multi-layer monitoring will be cohort-based performance tracking, breaking down the accuracy and fairness metrics by user segments, geography, time, and periods. And then finally, we must not forget human in the loop sampling, where a percentage of outputs get human review with smart sampling. Now, human in the loop is a very talked about thing here when we are talking about Gen AI and how it can automate all our work, because we are still in the very initial phase of this new technology. Keeping human in the loop will give us that affirmation on the work that we are getting or the responses we are getting from these machines. So that will be a key factor in the monitoring system, I believe. The next will be dynamic feedback loops, having testing frameworks, having the deployments with canary deployments, like starting with lower risk use cases or user segments and then moving up the ladder. And then the third best practice I would say is proactive data curation, which is continuous training of the data, synthetic data injection, like to address unrepresented groups without compromising the privacy, underrepresented groups, I mean. Then the third will be the adversarial testing under proactive data curation with red team, specifically looking for those bias triggers and the failure modes. And then finally, organizational practices like cross functional review boards, including not just technical teams but domain experts, ethic teams, and affected community representatives. Then the regular bias bounties, and then having an incident response playbook for the processes that goes on into a AI life cycle.
Yeah, that's great.
And actually, talking about that, we are taking a proactive step to manage AI risks and foster trust and interoperability. AWS is the first major cloud provider to announce ISO/IEC 42001 accreditation for AI services, covering our Amazon Bedrock, Amazon Q services, text track, and transcribe, and many more Gen AI services.
One quick question that just comes to mind, Moumita, is, 42,001, why is it so meaningful to customers? Kind of what confidence does it give them, or what confidence should it instill in them when they see this?
Well, ISO 42001 is an international management system standard that outlines the requirements for organizations to manage AI systems responsibly throughout their life cycle. Now, achieving this certification means that an independent third party, and that to an internationally recognized organization for AI governance, is giving validation that AWS is taking proactive steps to manage the risks and opportunities associated with the AI development, deployment, and the creation. And with this certification, we reinforce our commitments to providing AI services that help you innovate responsibly within the AI ecosystem.
That's great. I think anytime people in technology see the letters ISO together, they recognize that a lot of work has gone into the output of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And now, Adam, I would like to switch roles and have you answer some of the questions for our audience on how we are strengthening AI security on AWS with Sumo's help, Sumo
Yeah.
Logic's products. So, uh, could you talk us through the key capabilities that Sumo Logic offers for enhancing AI security on AWS, particularly focusing on any of the out of the box solutions if you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be on the other side of the chair here. Yeah, so we'll go over some of the really useful out of the box AWS apps, and then dive into how Sumo Logic's Dojo AI, which we released this week, and I'll talk a little bit more about how those agents can help cut through the noise, help you respond faster, and stay ahead.
Nice.
So next slide, Lisa. Yeah, so as many of you probably know, in Sumo Logic, you can leverage tons. I don't have the number in front of me, but tons of out-of-the-box dashboards, many that are focused on AWS. So let's start with the overview dashboard. This dashboard is really your holistic view of Bedrock activity across your AWS environment. Think of it as your command center. It shows you really everything at a glance. First you can quickly see where requests are coming from based on user location. Even you can see the map there in the screenshot. That makes it easy to understand usage patterns and spot anything unusual. It also tells you right away whether those requests were successful or failed. So you're not digging through logs, just mountains of data, just to answer basic questions about system health. Another key benefit is that it distinguishes between read-only events and modifying events. And that matters because it helps you track not just who's looking at data, but who's actually making changes, who's in there actually, actively working in it. So in short, the overview dashboard gives you a quick, actionable insight into usage, performance, and accountability all in one place. And I'll probably say this multiple times throughout this. But as we talk about Dojo AI more and our Mobot and query agent, these are things you can actively go in and query Bedrock questions. Ask questions directly about this dashboard or all of the dashboards that we'll go over, and it will give you those kind of very rich results just based on a natural language query. So that's something that's extremely useful.
That's awesome. Now, how this particular overview dashboard can help organizations maintain a visibility and control over their Bedrock activities? And could you please list some of the critical metrics it tracks?
Yeah, definitely. So, the overview, it's that single place to stay on top of this Bedrock activity. Like I mentioned, showing you where requests are coming from, whether they succeed or fail, separating out those read-only or modify events. And on top of that, it highlights your most active users. So that can be, again, useful just when you're doing an investigation or trying to figure out kind of where load is coming from or being generated from. That's useful. So you've got those, usage patterns right there, system health and accountability, all of those critical metrics that you need to stay in control and make the right decisions.
Awesome.
Next, we'll look at the CloudTrail audit overview dashboard. So this dashboard leverages AWS CloudTrail events to give you a full audit trail of all API activity. In other words, it's like the black box recorder, if you will, for your AWS environment. Every API call is tracked here and is just a super useful dashboard in general. You can see who's calling which services from which location, whether the request succeeded or failed. And that level of detail makes it easier to understand how Bedrock is being used in practice. It also helps you detect anomalous activity trends. And this is something I was doing with Mobot earlier, asking it about anomalous behavior in Bedrock and getting some interesting, useful results back. So, for example, you may notice an unusual spike in requests or a pattern of repeated failures, for example. Both of those can point to potential issues that need attention, and you can go in and dive into that further. And importantly, we've talked about compliance a bit, but this view really helps you maintain security and compliance visibility across all of your Bedrock usage. So whether it's for internal governance, for audits, for external requirements, you have a clear and defensible record of activity here, kind of at your fingertips.
That's awesome. Now, security and compliance are some of the major concerns for organizations using AI services. And as we all know, CloudTrail logs provide those detailed snapshot of the API calls. Now, how are we leveraging this audit dashboard to help address those security and compliance concerns of using AI services? And if there is any specific insight that this particular dashboard can provide?
Yeah, great question. So when organizations adopt AI services like Bedrock, visibility and compliance become even more critical because these services are often used to handle sensitive data and drive decision making. So you're leveraging this solution significantly for your business. So in the context of AI services, the specific insights that Sumo Logic provides are that detailed user activity, geographic, success, failure trends, anomaly detection, tied back to Bedrock usage. And like I was mentioning, one of the things that we'll talk about here in just a little bit is like the summary agent, the query agent. So being able to actually look at an insight that's bubbled up in Sumo Logic that pulls together all of those signals where you have a summary potentially of activity that has occurred, in AWS Bedrock or relating to it, that you can go in and kind of follow that breadcrumb trail back to what actually happened. So, the combination of this dashboard and some of the agent capabilities makes it much easier to govern AI responsibly and provide that compliance when needed. Good question, Moumita. Appreciate the back and forth here. Um, Now, so let's shift to the model log analysis dashboard. This view really taps into CloudWatch logs to dive deeper into the details of model invocation events. It's essentially where you can see what's really happening each time a model is called. So you get a breakdown of the models, what's happening as it goes along. And it doesn't just stop at the event. It actually captures the inputs and outputs of models along with the user information. And that makes it possible to understand not only what's being asked, but also by whom and what the system returned. So you can keep track, as we were talking about Moumita earlier, kind of keeping an eye on the model. This is a good way of doing that. And from there, the dashboard surfaces trends around usage, things like frequency of calls, what models are being hit the most, operational behavior, and identifying things like key users, common patterns, even potential misuse of models. For example, if you see like an unexpected spike and it doesn't line up with expected usage, you can act on it quickly and be notified of that. So yeah, this is a super useful dashboard in the context of responsible AI.
That's awesome. Now, when it comes to monitoring model behavior, as we can see this dashboard, what capabilities particularly would you like to highlight in this model log analysis dashboard that our customers can leverage in their organizations?
Yeah, I mean, definitely by pulling from CloudWatch logs, it's giving you that full picture of each invocation. I would say that inputs and outputs that I mentioned and the user behind the request, those things and bubbling that up to the surface in kind of a real-time fashion so that you can do something about it and have the ability to respond quickly. I think that's one of the biggest things, again, tying that visibility back to users, behavioral patterns, geographic locations, those kinds of things can be useful anytime you're in an incident. And again, that's one of the things that from a summary perspective, that the summary agent that is now actually in GA. I'm not sure that I mentioned that, but that is the kind of thing that you'll get some bubble up of that kind of information, which is great.
Awesome.
Good question. And then let's look at the runtime performance monitoring dashboard. So This dashboard is really all about keeping an eye on runtime performance metrics for your Amazon Bedrock workloads. So it tracks the essentials, things like invocation counts, token usage, again, for both inputs and outputs, and even image generation requests, which is fun. The level of details lets you see how your models are actually being used in real time. So, by watching these metrics, you can measure model performance and efficiency, and that's super key in making sure workloads stay optimized and cost effective. So, that's definitely a factor, the cost element, and so putting that in front of you in a tangible way is great. And beyond today's performance, this view also supports capacity planning. So it's amazing to know what's happening right now in your environment, but how do we plan for the future? How does that modeling, help us, be more efficient as a business? So showing usage, volume trends, resource consumption over time, so you can anticipate needs and scale proactively instead of reactively. And some of that, is often either seasonal or event driven. But again, this giving you kind of all of that data in one spot, and again to help with planning is huge, and certainly a big part of AI responsibility.
Well, performance optimization is crucial for any AI workload. I'm glad to see that you already have that kind of a performance runtime dashboard. Could you elaborate how this runtime dashboard can help organizations track and optimize their Bedrock implementations particularly?
Yeah, it kind of goes back. So I talked about invocation counts, token usage on the both input and output front, and those generation requests, image generation requests. With that data, it just gives you that kind of real time view of how your models are performing, whether workloads are efficient, again, cost effective. So those are really kind of the big things on that front of like the performance optimization. I think it's something that users, in optimizing performance and cost today, and planning capacity for tomorrow, that's kind of where it all ties together. Especially again on that capacity planning, that's a big one.
That's really great. And I guess for our audience, this is what we have been talking theoretically on responsible AI. That is
Yeah.
how you can take your AI journey to the next level by implementing these kind of dashboards and monitoring systems, which can allow you to put that responsible AI bracket around your workloads. That's great, Adam. Now, looking ahead, could you share some more details about Sumo Logic's AI agent strategy, particularly the development of Mobot and your
Yeah.
specialized agents for security?
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's, as I mentioned, it's timely actually. This week we made the announcement on Dojo AI. Dojo AI is comprised, and this graphic kind of goes through it a bit, but is comprised of Mobot, Sumo's unified conversational interface. So it basically responds to your natural language queries and works with the query agent, which is now in beta, to turn those questions into Sumo Logic query language. So it can save you a lot of time, but it really, it also helps users of all different skill levels, those who may be less familiar with query structure, really dig in and get some meaningful insights out of your data. And since it's multi-turn, you can basically use it to illuminate issues in your environment. So you can, kind of have a running conversation with it. For example, our summary agent, which again went GA this week, summarizes the vast signals from an insight into something digestible, and then you can use Mobot to investigate the components of that insight. I was actually working through some of the dashboard content that we just talked about with Mobot this morning, and it was great to see the level of information that you can pull out of the environment with just basic questions, with kind of some simple conversational type questions. So exciting stuff, and there's more to come.
Absolutely. Now, how Sumo Logic solutions align with and support the best practices of responsible AI that you have outlined so far?
Yeah, that's a great question. So responsible AI is all about transparency, accountability, and accessibility. And that's exactly what Dojo AI delivers. With Mobot, as I mentioned, anyone can explore issues in natural language, lowering that barrier of investigation. The query agent makes that process transparent by turning those plain questions into Sumo Logic query language, so you can trace and trust what you're getting back results wise. And then the summary agent takes those complex insight and condenses them down into clear, digestible answers. In just a very kind of brief section. So that's extremely powerful. And together, I would say that these agents make it easier for every user, not just technical experts, to understand, to investigate, and to act responsibly. So that way, Dojo AI doesn't just speed up analysis. It does it in a way that fully supports the best practices of responsible AI.
Well, that's great. Moving on, as we are talking now about responsible AI in practice and kind of summing up our thoughts on responsible AI from AWS, I would also like to echo what you said, Adam. And on top of that, if our audience need to take away some major items or best practices about responsible AI, I would like to sum it up with four particularly. First is focus on the use cases. How are we defining the use cases for the user? And we have to remember the more specific and narrow we go, the better is those easy defining of the fairness for your use case. And we can also leverage that in developing the training algorithms that enforce the definition. So, focusing on the right use case is very important as you start your responsible AI journey. The second will be assess risk on a use case by use case basis. Considering risk is the context of each use case, and that will help us determine which safeguards to put in place because that is absolutely necessary for our guardrails and preventive measures for responsible AI. Third is iterate across the AI lifecycle. No system is perfect from the beginning. And even if it is close to perfect, that can change as technology evolves. So, creating an initial Gen AI system is just the beginning. We might need to monitor and come back and evaluate the model every time a new advancement is done. And that will help us build on the deployments that we have done previously. Finally, testing. Test and test again and test again. Rigorous testing is the secret strategy behind any innovation, be it Gen AI or any other technology. For software to space exploration, this is the way we can evolve our own systems and applications that we create. Now, that's how I would like to sum up, along with the great advices that Adam, you have already provided from Sumo Logic. I guess responsible AI is not a single stop in our AI journey. It's kind of a evolving technology, it's kind of an evolving era in this technology journey that we are all in. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was amazing.